Hi everyone, I'm Katie Stanley, an assistant naturalist here at the Latodami Nature Center at North Park. So I'm going to take you on another virtual Thursday hike today. And today we are on the Red Trail / Rachel Carson Trail. So this trail goes along Northridge Drive, and it's a really pretty trail if you want to see more of a forest ecosystem, but there is a really nice stream that runs through it. So we're just going to investigate some of the stuff that's in this forest today. And if you're ready, you can come along with me. If you are new to plant identification, it can be really overwhelming. There are a ton of different plants and trees, and it seems that the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. So it's best to start easy, and if you're learning trees, I would recommend learning the black cherry because that's one of, I think, the easiest trees to identify, especially by its bark. So this is the type of tree that you can identify year-round and impress your friends with year-round. And the reason that I say it's easy to identify is because it has this really dark bark that looks kind of like burnt potato chips. That's something that the naturalist here at the Nature Center has taught me. And just like I said, it's one of the darker trees in the landscape. So if you look across, you may see more dark trees, likely a black cherry. Maybe you see a pitch pine or something, but if you get closer up and investigate and you see bark that looks like burnt potato chips, you probably landed yourself on a black cherry. So that's just an easy one to learn right off the bat. Like I said, it's pretty characteristic in a landscape. So yep, you got yourself a black cherry right here. So I challenge you to take a bit of a closer look when you're walking through the forest because you might happen upon something really cool like this. So you may notice this crazy little trail that's running up this maple tree, and that is actually a snail trail. So snails are eating the algae that's growing on this tree as they go up, and that's why it's leaving behind this path. So it's not their slime that's leaving that, it's actually them just getting rid of all that green stuff that's growing on top of the bark. So that's just something really fun you might notice as you're hiking through North Park. Another thing that you'll notice as you're hiking along this trail is a lot of these vines that are hanging off trees. And this vine right here is Oriental Bittersweet. So this is a vine that is an invasive plant. So like I said, it's one of those plants that doesn't have a natural predator, so it can quickly take over landscapes. And what this vine does is it climbs whatever it can to try to get to the top of the forest canopy, where it obviously wants sunlight to grow. So what it does by doing that is it blocks out sun for all of the trees and the other plants that are low in the canopy, but it also twists really tightly around the trees that it's growing around and can actually girdle and kill them eventually. So this is a plant that you can help take care of by just carrying around a pair of clippers with you as you're hiking, and you can just go ahead and clip and free a tree from this vine, because some more extreme examples will show the tree actually trying to bust out of the seams of that Oriental Bittersweet. It's wrapped so tightly that you can tell that the tree really has no chance. And you may even notice further behind me that there is grapevine, which is a vine that is native, so it's not as damaging to our trees. It can be a little damaging because of course it does take up sunlight. It can cause some felling of tree branches, but it's not as damaging as something like that bittersweet. And the bittersweet will actually hitch a ride on that grapevine to try to get to the top of the trees too. So this is one of those really nasty invasives that you can help take care of if you're just walking around in the woods with a pair of clippers on you. Another interesting part about this particular landscape is the large amount of dead standing trees that are in this forest. So we as humans like to cut down trees if they're dying. Of course, if they're gonna damage the structural integrity of something on our property, that needs to be done. But we need to understand how important it is to leave dead trees standing. And that's because they have a lot of maybe insect activity. I could see by peeling away the bark of this dead ash tree that there are some little grubs hanging out in there, and that is something that woodpeckers love. So you'll notice in areas with a lot more dead standing trees, there's a lot of woodpeckers, and I can actually hear one as I'm talking to you right now. So this is the type of area where you'll hear lots of woodpeckers, you may hear lots of owls, and that's because, like I said, there's those insects that's behind the bark, but there are also natural cavities in these type of dead trees. So those cavities are really important for woodpeckers to raise their young and for owls to raise their young. Owls do not actually create their own cavities, so they depend on this stuff to be naturally occurring in a landscape. So that's why it's really important that if you are able to leave a dead tree hanging around so you can provide food and habitat for wildlife. If you are getting into hiking, one thing that's really important for you to understand are trail blazes. So you can see here that we have some trail blazes, and the blaze just indicates that you're going on the right trail if it's one singular blaze. But like we have here, we have these two blazes that are positioned kind of across from each other, and what that indicates is that the trail is going to make a left turn. So by this upper blaze being on the left, we know that the trail is going to make a left turn. If it were on the right, we know the trail would make a right turn. There are also other blazes, like 3 blazes, that might indicate the start or the end of a trail, or like I said, just one singular blaze lets you know you're going the right way. But this is something that's really important to understand because you never want to get lost in the woods, right? And if you're somewhere like North Park, there are a lot of blazes, you're probably in a good situation, but if you're on one of those longer distance trails, you might want to recognize these and get familiarized with these so that you know that you're going the right direction and that you're staying safe while you're hiking. This is an excellent time of year to see wildflowers, and I see 2 right next to me. So we have golden ragwort, that's this one right here with his really pretty purple buds, and we also have coltsfoot, that's this one here that looks a lot like a dandelion. The interesting thing about this golden ragwort is, like I said, those purple buds right there. So you would think that this would open up to a bright, beautiful purple flower, but it actually is a bright, beautiful yellow flower, so that's just something really fun. And in ancient times, they did believe that the ragwort would help speed up the process of childbirth, but researchers have found that ragwort is actually toxic, so don't be using that to speed up any childbirth. And then we also have this coltsfoot right over here. So the interesting thing about coltsfoot is that the flower actually blooms and dies before you ever even see leaves on this flower. So that's why it got the nickname of son before father. And then of course it's called coltsfoot because the leaves do look like a horse's foot. So that's just some fun little wildflowers to get to know. So we're going to go ahead and age this black cherry tree right here, and I'm not going to cut it down to age it. A lot of people think the only way that you can age a tree is by cutting it down and counting the rings, but there's a much easier and less damaging way to do it. And all you have to do is have a tape measure and a little sheet of paper that we can provide to you, and you can go ahead and age any tree that's in the surrounding area, at least most trees. So you're going to go ahead and grab your tape measure, and this one's a 10-foot long one. That's just pretty nice to have because some trees do have pretty wide circumference. So you're going to measure from the ground up to 52 inches, and that is what we call breast height. So scientists have just kind of made this a constant breast height so that we all know that we're measuring the circumference at the same area. So right here is 52 inches, and now I'm going to wrap this around and measure the circumference of this tree. So we have found our tree's circumference, which is about 56 inches, and to determine the tree's age, we need to find its diameter. So I know you didn't think that you'd be in math class today, but you are. And how do you find the diameter of a tree from its circumference? Well, you divide by pi, which is 3.14. To make it easier, you can divide by 3. So I have a handy dandy calculator right here on my phone. So I'm just going to divide 56 by 3. And I got 18.6 repeating, so that's about 19. We'll just round up to 19. And then after that, you have to multiply by the tree's growth factor. So every tree grows at different rates. And to find the tree's growth factor, you can download this really awesome form that was made by Naturalist Meg right here. So the black cherry's growth factor is 5. So that means that we have to multiply 19 by 5. So we're going to go ahead and do 19 times 5 on our smartphones or in our heads if we're super smart. And that means that this tree is 95 years old. So this tree is about 95 years old. And we do have much larger trees in North Park that go over 200 years old. And another really fun thing that we like to do, especially with kids, is, okay, what year was this tree made and what was going on in history at that time? So this is something that you could do. All you need is a tape measure and this really awesome form you can download. We're going to end our hike today at one of those dead standing trees that I was talking about. And this guy right here just kind of exemplifies the importance of dead standing trees in a forest. So you could see that this guy had carpenter ant damage. This is actually the frass or the poop of carpenter ants that is falling out of here. And you could also see that the woodpeckers really enjoyed that carpenter ant infestation. So they were pecking holes in this dead tree and eating up those yummy ants. There's also something really cool right here. These hair-like fibers are called mycelium. mycelium. And what that is it's the vegetative part of a fungus, like a mushroom. So a fungus is not just maybe that mushroom that you see on the side of the tree. It has this huge network of these fibers going through the tree, and what those do is they help absorb nutrients for that fungus, but they also help decompose and break down. So that is helping decompose and break down this tree right here. And you can also see the scar tissue. This tree may have been damaged from something else and it tried to heal itself. So just like us, when we cut ourselves badly, we might get a scar, and that's kind of a rougher area on our skin. That's the same thing this tree did. It tried to heal itself, so you could see it kind of building this scar tissue, wrapping around and trying to save itself. But sadly, I don't think this guy's gonna make it. And if you were to step around the other side of the tree, you would see Virginia creeper, which is a really cool native plant, a native vine that grows up our trees in Pennsylvania. And in the fall, it has beautiful colors that once those leaf drops, they expose a berry that's really important for migrating birds over the winter. So leaving these standing trees here is really important for wildlife. Like I said, there's a lot of food sources, and if there were more cavities, this would be an awesome area maybe for bats to roost or owls to make their homes in. So again, that's why these dead trees are really important to forests. Thank you guys so much for joining me on another virtual hike. I hope you learned something that you take out into the woods next time you're on your own hike. But if you ever do see something that you want to identify, you can download the free app called iNaturalist. This app is awesome because it'll help you identify anything from plants to bones to even poop. And it's free. You could just take a picture and it'll identify it for you. And the great thing about that app is that a lot of organizations will use it for research purposes or even eradication purposes, like the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy will use it to help eradicate large patches of invasives. So if you're not with a naturalist during this time, you could go download iNaturalist and keep watching these virtual hikes. Thanks again, guys, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.